Well, good day, ladies and gentlemen of the interwebs. Zombie Force here. Uh, just for some recent events and explanations of what's going on here, let's just start right here. We'll start with Alaska. Okay. Whenever I say oil is money, and money wouldn't be worth anything without oil. Why? Because there ain't enough. There's not enough other things on the planet worthy of currency other than gold, which there's not a whole lot of to go around, and silver. But the top thing on the menu here on this conversation is going to be black gold. And the black gold flows down out of Alaska. It's going to stop right over in here somewhere. It doesn't go from Alaska down into the northern west corner of the United States. I know that sounds crazy, but a certain assigned fleet of tankers, cargo tankers, are primarily responsible for transporting the oil from here, which is the little corner right over here at the ports, and then they take it right over here to Vancouver area, which it's offloaded into the refineries there in Washington, see. But however, like California, they've taken some of their refineries offline, and the primary, which they're not importers, this is domestic oil. It's coming from Alaska to Washington State. Then it gets refined in Washington State, and it goes across the whole Pacific over here. Some of it goes to Hawaii. There they are. They're way out there. And some of it goes to Japan. It goes to Taiwan. It goes over into what? North Korea. South Korea. I mean, not North Korea. We don't give North Korea shit. It goes into this region here from the Alaskan coast. Get back over here where we're gonna see what we got going on here. Okay, so that's import, and then you got the Canadian line, trans-Canadian line, comes across Alberta, Saskatchewan, Alberta, British Columbia, and it's exported there in a crude oil form, and it actually goes over to the same island chains, Asia. So anyhow, 60%, however, of the economy for British Columbia, Alberta, and parts of Saskatchewan are dependent on the oil exports from that region of Canada, and then the 60% of the other exports coming out of Canada go into the United States. Okay. Now you got the Gulf of America. See how they changed that on Google Maps? Ain't that cool? It's Gulf of America. Anyhow, so Mexico is responsible for, like, I don't know, between 9 and 10, 11% of the imported oil into the United States and their refineries inside the Gulf there, if you didn't know that. And then, due to recent upticks in Venezuela, see, it's right here, it's close, it's close. And then You've got Venezuela. You've got Gulf of America. Come on down here to South America, Brazil. See, they produce oil too. Now, that's a vast amount of oil right there. Then if you go right over here, across the pond to the United Kingdom, okay, just to let you folks know that the UK and Ireland and them guys over there, they don't have enough production to produce what they need in petroleum. If people didn't know that, they just don't. They don't. The Norway and Sweden and all of those guys, they're just producing just barely enough for them and to have a little small export capability of petroleum or natural gas, So it's a long way. It's only about 2 days closer. It saves about 4 days a week off the trip to go through Balbandel Strait, which is this little pinch right here. That's that little pinch. And then you got the Houthis, Yemen, right in there. And then it's another cruise north. You come by Cairo, Jerusalem, Alexandria, and you come out, put you out in the Mediterranean, and you come through the Mediterranean, Gibraltar. That's the only outlet. There's pretty much a landmass block going on there, if you can't tell it. Oh, to transport, it's what some people can't get their heads around. To transport millions of barrels of oil across a landmass from all the way down here in Saudi Arabia, Iraq, and Syria. It's a long way around through there by a truck, through Turkey. So whenever you have, like I said this the other night about if one person starts a war with another person inside the Gulf of Oman, okay, that's going to inadvertently shut down 31% of the oil supply of the world oil supply. That's not 31% of this country. That's 31% of the 100% of the petroleum, fertilizer, things that are derived from petroleum. They got other things inside that Gulf over there besides oil. So about 30% roughly of the world's oil trade is held up inside the UAE, you understand, and Iran. The distance that it would take for a country like Iran to cross country oil through the mountainous regions of Afghanistan, over into Pakistan, all this other stuff going on. it would be, it couldn't be done by truck. It couldn't be done by rail, only because it's a slow. Some of the cargo ships that hold this oil transport, they hold like 2 million barrels of oil on one transfer ship. Some of the bigger ones. And the thing is whenever you have a stream of ships that are coming from over here in this region, they're coming down, and they're passing the southern tip of Africa. And when they cross the southern tip of Africa, it's pretty much a direct straight shot over to Venezuela and Gulf of America. Right now there's about roughly 120 to 140 tankers inbound empty to the Venezuela, Brazil. They'll top off in Brazil, Venezuela. They'll go over and get filled up inside the Gulf, which we call it Loop, Louisiana. It's Louisiana oil outlet pump. It means that it'll be in this area out in the Gulf here, around Galveston, between Galveston, Houston, that area, Port Arthur. So you got the capacity to fill up all of these oil tankers coming inbound that are empty, get them a fill up and let them go on about their business. It's roughly from the Gulf of America at steam, which is about 17 to 18 knots on a good day. It's about a 42, it's about a 42-day journey to go all the way back over to India, to go into Thailand, Cambodia, southern China, that way. And people really don't get that. And what I'm saying is, they say, well, why don't they go through the Panama Canal, which is located here? Okay. The Panama Canal is too narrow for most of the major oil tankers, if you didn't know that, which means that they can't take a shortcut from the Gulf of America and just go right across the Pacific, straight across to, New Zealand. There's Australia. See, we got lots of people down there that consume this oil. South Korea and Japan, they can't just take a straight path across the Pacific because the Panama Canal is too narrow, which eventually means that a lot of the tankers and bulk tankers coming in to South America, eastern coast, northeast coast, up into the Gulf of America to get filled with crude oil or oil products. That's diesel. It could be a number of products, 30-weight motor oil. It could be any kind of thing on these containers. Eventually, you're going to find that a lot of the super tankers, excuse me, are going to start filling on the western coast of the United States. To get to Asian region and India. So whenever I was saying that in the panel about whenever this little bit of water right here starts causing too big of a problem, and then whether naval fleets start shooting at each other or the enemy starts shooting at the Navy, American naval forces, or armed forces of America right here, to try to free up people coming in and out of here. This little strait right here, you see. There's a lot of important stuff located right inside this turn right here. And there's Dubai. It's a place that exists only because of oil. Dubai does not exist without oil. You have to understand that. You come on around into United Emirates, you just keep going around and you're going to find yourself in familiar territory for some of these guys that Qatar, But what it amounts to is they do have a pipeline that comes across from Kuwait that runs cross continent over into the Red Sea Gulf. There is one there, but it's only capable of filling up so many millions of barrels per day, which is not even nowhere near what it's going to take to top off 120 empty vessels that are in the path between Gulf of Oman down to the southern Cape Town of Africa and heading their way back over to the coast of Brazil, Venezuela, and Gulf of America. That's just the way it is, And poor little old Cuba, Cuba, they're stuck right in the middle of all this wealth flowing back and forth, and they can't get none of it. Most of those people are still without electricity, and most of the people on the island are without fuel for the vehicles. But anyways, what it amounts to is in short, it means that nobody gets anything. See, that's what I said. Nobody gets anything. See, that makes everybody from this Gulf of Oman coming in here to the Hormuz Strait and to the Persian Gulf get nothing. You understand? Nothing. It means that the economic disaster that will happen inside these regions. And then you've got the Iranians, they're one side of it is they don't want to give anybody anything. They don't want to be told what to do, blah, 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 blah. We can have this if we want to have this, blah, blah, blah. But it's like I said, this one means nobody gets anything. Nobody gets anything, you see. Nobody gets anything. It means that the Chinese that are getting the Iranian oil shipped out are no longer getting any oil. China already knows that their economy, and this is real important for people if they didn't know this, China. Let's go to China. China, man, They get primarily most of their oil at this time is coming from Russia, you see. And since just before all of this little incident that was going on over here, this little incident, before that was going on, Russia increased its export capability to China by 60%. You got to understand that. Russia is willing to increase production to China to pump more oil, crude oil, and oil product into China for a specific reason. And everybody says, oh, it's going to make China stronger and they're going to be able to be more ready for war. No, it simply means Russia's making all-time history profits. You got to understand that. From oil production. They are making excessive amounts of money for the Russian economy as we speak. All of this economy that's India, Bangladesh, all of these little places over in there are making tremendous profits for Russia on oil. Because Russia, if it says, okay, we're going to close down our oil exports, we're going to close down our exports, for anything. It means they don't have to really export any oil or petroleum product to anybody because they've got plenty to sustain themselves. They're a superpower. But whenever they're making all-time profits, billions and billions and billions of dollars in profit every day, selling oil to these people and those people and those people, then Russia is not going to be interested in any kind of conflict because of what's going on inside this strait. They could care less. The longer the Hormuz Strait stays closed or inconvenienced or whatever's going on, the Americans are in there, blockading, The fact of the matter is Russia's not going to get involved only because they're making more money in the oil right now than they have in a long time because of this thing, which means that the Trump administration not only made things a little harder for the little tyrants that's inside the desert over there that wants to control the Persian Gulf. They want to control the Hormuz Strait of Hormuz. They want to control all of that. When it's international water, it's been that way for a long, long time. So now nobody gets nothing. It means you're going to bed without your dinner. So shut the fuck up. That's what that means. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, Russia, they making all-time records in oil sales. They just are. And guess what's happening? Guess what happens there? You see? What happens there? It means that they got more than enough money coming in to sustain themselves during this conflict. And to tell these people, and some of these people over in here, to get out of the territory of these people. These people are supposed to be neutral in their everything. The people of Ukraine are not supposed to be battling against Poland or Germany or any of them. They're not supposed to be battling against these people right here in Moscow. There's supposed to be a neutral bumper right here. Not 1 inch. You see? Not 1 inch. So now that most of all of this whole entire region, all the way on up, Norway, they ain't really worried about it, and Denmark, they're not really worried about it. Sweden, they're not really worried about it. These people right here are. This is who's worried about it. These are the people that's worried about it. See? All these people. Why? It's because where's the oil going to come from? Where's it going to come from? Who's going to sell them some oil when they don't got any? You see? Finland, Sweden, Norway, forget it. People think, oh, they got abundance. No, they don't. They got enough oil and petroleum and gas production to barely, just to sustain their own society and their economy, plus with minimum export, which means they don't have a lot left over for export purposes. They're limited. They don't have enough on this little island over here to sustain everything going on all these little islands over here and still sustain themselves in production. West Africa, you know, Nigeria, Gabon, you know, Ghana, you know, they have export and oil. And believe it or not, they go right up here and go there, you know. They just do. This little problem right here, it's just a little bleep. Everybody thinks, oh, we're going to go to nuclear war with Iran. And then they're saying, oh, China's going to back Iran. China's going to back Iran. China's going to back Iran. No, they're not. Why? Because China is completely heavier depending on Russia. These people right here. Canada and USA. See? That's who they're depending on for their economy, to feed their people, to have money and currency inside their overcrammed population of billions of people. You see? So it's not as bad as what people think. It means that Russia ain't getting involved. India ain't gonna get involved. Pakistan definitely ain't getting involved. And it means that the only two people that seem to be sticking together on their guns on some things, it's gonna be based on these little people right over here on this side of the bank, right up in here, you know. And these little people over here. See? Nobody else is going to want to get involved in any of this. And as far as I see, it means the firmness of the ground that's being standing on right there is firm. It means that it gives the Ayatollah Khomeini of Iran a taste of his own medicine, and the people there a taste of their own medicine. It's when you start going around trying to dictate who can come in and out of the ocean, which is this thing. It's about 45 kilometers. It's probably about 50 kilometers there at its widest point, which means that that's pretty narrow, you know. And as far as I know, we got some frigates and some stuff parked in here that's doing their job and saying, you know, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. But remember that 31% of the oil wealth in the world, you see, in the whole wide, big old world, comes out of this right here. These two regions between United Arab Emirates, Iran, Kuwait, you know, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, you know. I got arachnophobia. That's what I got, arachnophobia. But anyways, there's a pipeline that goes across there, but it ain't enough. By Jeddah, all through there, you know, they got a pipeline that comes across through there. But that's just enough to support other regions around. It's not enough to support the whole Western Hemisphere. 31%, that's what's laying in there. And the rest of the 69% of oil comes from this big ass place right here, this big ass place right here, and these big ass places right here and right here. You see? So, anyways, don't know if that helped you or if I was just rattling along here as I usually do, but there you have it, which means that besides that, it's going to set that oil trade across that Atlantic there. It's going to set that back about another month and a half just to be able to get all the tankers full. You see, you got to understand that there's tankers that are just now leaving here, this little area right up in here. It's 42 days of sailing to get here. You see, whenever they get here, that's 42 days, and whenever they got to go back, all the way back around, they got to go back over here to India, you know, Myanmar, Thailand, you know, South Korea, all this shit. You're talking pretty good while. I would say that the bulk tankers in this region are going to be handicapped because of this little reason right here, Panama. They can't fit their big asses through the Panama, which means that they got to sail all the way down around South America. See what's down there? See what I mean? You're almost at the South Pole. That's a landmass that extends further south. You see, and it's more, the waters down in there are just hectic for the big boys, the big containers. But anyways, there's no way. I mean, that's just what I'm saying. They can't get through. They can't get their fat asses through the Panama Canal, because if they could, it's only a 14-day sail from Gulf of America, Venezuela, to Southeast Asia. But anyways, just screwing around. Maybe y'all find some of this stuff interesting. But remember what I said, you know, 68%, 60 to 68% of the trade economy in these four provinces across here are dependent on this export right here on this coast. In Alaska, they just boat our shit down here to Washington. You know, we got oil for days. We got oil for days, and yes, we have more than enough to satisfy the rest of the crowd, it's just going to take a while to get caught up, to get all the ships filled up and on their way and everything kind of back on schedule. But the back on schedule could be as high as 3 months or better before any kind of normality comes back to the oil scene. You know, it just is. And hope everybody's having a good day. Until I make another one of these crazy videos, Zombie Force out.